Welcome to Educate, Inform, and Challenge. My name is Teresa MacLennan. I'm the Executive Director here at the Women and Children's Shelter. We are so glad that you have joined us. As you know, the purpose of our show is to talk about the lives and experiences of women who are experiencing abuse. We also talk about the important voice that men have in ending gender-based violence. We talk about human trafficking. We talk about all things related to women, women in leadership and business, women in politics. So we're always thankful that you, our community, come alongside us and that we can have these conversations together as we learn and grow together. Before we begin, we do want to acknowledge and thank the traditional lands that we are able to have these conversations and to tape our show today. We thank our Indigenous community for their heritage, their culture, and that we can work towards being allies in support of our Indigenous folks. So, without further delay, I am really thrilled to introduce my guest today. Her name is Jessica Galbraith, and she's the chapter director for Shelter Movers Greater Toronto. Welcome, Jessica. It's so nice to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Teresa.
So before we begin, Jessica, do you want to tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, just so they can get to know you a little bit more?
Sure. My name is Jessica Galbraith. My pronouns are she and her. I'm been within the violence against women sector for over 10 years now. It's a cause I'm very passionate about. I really want to be an advocate for anyone who's experiencing violence in their lives. And through that work, I found Shelter Movers, which we're here today to talk about.
That's great. So, I know I'm not fully aware of all of your experience in relation to gender-based violence. So we are going to dive into talking about Shelter Movers, but can you share with us maybe some of your work experience or your involvement in ending violence against women?
Sure. So I've actually been a long time volunteer in the sector. I've organized crafting programs to women's drop-in shelters. I've worked in several shelters within Toronto in the community outreach department, so giving seminars about healthy relationships and self-confidence. I have also been a counselor at the Toronto Rape Crisis Line for 3 years now, and I've been part of the George Brown Assaulted Women's and Children Advocate Program.
So such a wealth of experience and knowledge about the sector, and certainly I think the work that we do here in the shelter, and such a direct link to the work that you're doing with Shelters Movers. So I really want to talk about that. So tell us about Shelter Movers and really what is the goal and purpose of that service?
The Shelter Movers is a national volunteer-powered organization that provides free moving and store services to folks fleeing abuse. Why we do this is folks leaving a violent home are facing so many barriers to do so, one of which is financial. And we try to take some of that burden away by providing free support that would otherwise not be available to them.
Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate what you're saying, because we experience this so much with women and their children who are here in our shelter. And it is hard enough for women to make the decision to leave their abusive partner, and finances can be a big piece of that. And then they make that difficult decision. They arrive in the shelter, they're here. And then they may be, here for a bit, because our women do tend to stay much longer than they ever did before. And then they're going to be moving into, hopefully, their forever home. And again, their situation with finances rears to the top again, and they really don't know how they are going to be able to do that. So let's talk about what it is exactly that Shelter Movers will provide in terms of support for women.
And so we offer all of the support around moving. So if you are moving into a shelter, we're there to help pack up your belongings and put them into storage while you're in shelter. So you don't have to worry about the storage costs. You don't have to worry about rebuying all the furniture and losing those things that don't have any financial merit, let's say, but hold such emotional value to you, your kids' paintings, your photo albums. We offer free storage, so you don't have to worry about losing that. We also are run by volunteers, so you don't have to hire movers. You don't have to book moving trucks. You don't have to buy boxes, which are surprisingly expensive. As someone who recently moved, I'm always shocked by that cost. We covered those costs for you, so you don't have to think about that when your energy should be spent on healing and taking care of your kids. We also are there at the other end when you're ready to move out of shelter into your new home. We'll do it all again for you. Most of our clients use our services multiple times. So it's that first move out of a violent home into shelter, maybe getting your winter clothes from storage while you're still in shelter. And then once you're ready to move into your new home, we'll be there.
So do you have direct contact with the women in your volunteering that you're doing with shelter movers?
Yeah, so I actually started as a volunteer at Shelter Movers in 2017, so about a year after the organization started. First as a volunteer mover, so I was the one actually going on the moves, picking up the boxes, speaking with clients directly. Then I also became a move coordinator once my schedule got a little too busy to be going out on moves. I was doing it from home, and that meant working directly with the client to plan the move to be safe and efficient and on her terms. So there is a lot of direct contact with clients when you're a volunteer with us, depending on your comfort level and your skill set.
So I want to ask you this because you have a wealth of experience in the sector, and you've had that really intimate contact with women at a very vulnerable time in their life. Can you just help our viewers to understand the experience for women who are needing to move from their home and just the real array of emotions that they're going through?
It's so different for every person going through that. It can be a really happy moment for folks, like, oh, I'm finally free, is something that we actually hear on moves. It sounds a little cheesy, but it's definitely something we've heard. And it's a feeling that's very powerful when you've spent the last few hours helping someone pack up their belongings. There's also can be a lot of sadness. One of the moves I remember most vividly is when we were moving out of a shelter with a mom and her kids, and the kids were really sad to leave the shelter, even though mom was ready to get going, but they had made a lot of friends and there. So it's different depending on where folks are on their journey, and even how the day is going sometimes can change the mood of everyone involved. So it's a very unique experience for folks.
And have you ever had the experience when you are there or the team is there ready to support a woman and to move her, and she says, I can't do it, I don't want to do it? Does that ever happen?
On the day, there can be some of that, but on each one of our moves, we have a specific volunteer that we call a lead mover, who's kind of the person's partner for the day. So they're there to advocate for them and to talk them through any of these kind of feelings. So on the day, I've never had someone say, you know, I don't want to do this today, but in the planning process, that sometimes comes up. I think the general statistic these days, it takes someone 7 times to leave an abusive home. So there's a lot of emotions and barriers, like I mentioned before, that can have someone stop the move out. So
yeah, things like financial, worries, and of course, the woman may have always loved her partner, didn't want to be in this situation. The children want to keep the family together. Family members want to keep the family together, a unit, right? So many challenges that we certainly hear women express to us. And you're right, that statistic 7 times. I mean, we will frequently have so many women that will come to our shelter. They may stay a very short time and decide to go back. We always hope that she's going to call us again And maybe the next time she comes in, it'll be just that much longer, right? So I can really, really appreciate the sensitive manner in the way you need to support women and their children as they are just making this huge move and transitioning out, right? And I guess you see women who, even though there's a storage facility and a truck, they probably still have to leave quite a bit behind. Yeah.
Yes, our storage facilities, we've been very lucky to find donors that have provided these facilities free of cost, but they are limited. So someone who may be leaving a home outside of Toronto, actual full house, won't be able to take everything. So there are some difficult decisions that are to be made, but we're there to be with you to help you through that beforehand and even on the day.
Yeah. So you talked about you have partnership with storage units because I know I don't think you're just in Toronto. Are you in other areas as well?
Yes, so Shelter Movers is now a national organization. So we're actually across country. We have 9 chapters all the way from Vancouver to Nova Scotia. In Toronto itself, we first started right downtown Toronto, but now have expanded to have official extensions in Peel region and York region. And then we also go farther out of those regions, such as Barrie, of course.
Yes.
Yes.
So like our area in Barrie, which we're so appreciative of, right? And I think it is terrific that it is now a national movement, and lovely that it is really generated by volunteers, right? And what does that volunteer base look like? Is there a lot of volunteers?
Yes. So in Toronto, we have about 300 volunteers, and our volunteers are from such a wide variety of backgrounds. As someone who's kind of volunteered in the sector for many years, there's a specific kind of person who tends to work in shelters and those kind of agencies. But here, because there's more, I feel the reason is there's more of a tangible aspect that may appeal to folks who maybe wouldn't necessarily be drawn to this work. They want to help, but they don't know how. So the fact that you can spend an afternoon just lifting some boxes into a truck and really making a difference in someone's life is really impactful for some folks. The last move I was on, for instance, we had myself with a social work background, we had an accountant, we had an engineer from the airport, and we had someone who worked in construction. So it's a wide variety of folks. And like you said in your intro, it actually appeals a lot to men in the community who may not necessarily feel like they belong volunteering in a shelter. So it's a great opportunity for folks who generally maybe aren't the volunteering type in their minds.
Yeah, terrific, terrific. Well, do you know what? We're going to take a very short commercial break, and then we're going to come back to this great conversation. Please join us as we continue this dialogue with Jessica, and we're going to learn more about shelter movers. We will be right back.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Today, I helped a parent feed their family by connecting them to a food program.
Today, I helped someone connect with mental health supports.
Today, I helped a couple struggling to pay their bills access financial aid.
Every day, 211 navigators connect Canadians to critical government and community programs and services.
211. Help starts here.
The Colts take the ice Saturday to face the Ice Dogs.
In front shot scores! Sean Aitchison, cross one-timer scores!
Ice Dogs, Colts, Saturday on Rogers TV.
Welcome back to Educate, Inform, Challenge. We are having a great discussion with Jessica Galbraith, who's the chapter director for Shelter Movers Greater Toronto. And as we just learned, this is a national movement. It's a group of volunteers that really do understand the difficulties for women to be able to leave an abusive partner. And part of that might be finances and what's going to happen to my stuff and where's all my stuff going to go as women are moving into a shelter or from a shelter. So Jessica, let's pick right back up. What does it look like? Like, how does a woman find you and know about your services?
Well, each one of our moves starts with a referral from one of our community partners. So that can be really anyone who's working in a professional capacity with someone. So most of our referrals come from shelters, but we also get referrals from victim services, police, doctors, lawyers. We need someone there to kind of help create this circle of care that we want for each person who uses our service. So once we get a referral from them, we complete an intake, which gives us all the details we need to have a safe and efficient move. It starts with the basics that everyone needs when they move. What are we moving? When are we moving? Where are we moving to? But then it gets into more safety information that's specific to the folks that we serve. So we want to know, did the person who has done harm to you, do they know of any of the addresses involved? Are they currently incarcerated? Do they live in the locations that we may be going back to? This is all really important for the planning process, so we know whether we need security or police there to accompany our volunteers. Once that part is complete, then the process moves forward into more client-directed service. So we work with a volunteer move coordinator who's in charge of planning the day, and they work directly with the folks that were moving to get the most up-to-date and accurate information. So we'll talk directly to the person we're moving, ask them what they want for the day and what we can actually accomplish. After that, then that person works to find the vehicles, the security, the language interpreters, whatever we need for that day. They put that all together, and then a whole other group of volunteers comes into play. They're the ones who will actually be meeting the client on the day and moving the belongings. That is just an example of how many folks are involved for each and every move that we do. It's really about neighbors helping neighbors. And it's really like a powerful thought to think there's so many people behind the scenes making this one move happen.
That is an incredible amount of people and coordination of all those people.
Yes.
And then you have the woman in the center of that and her own story and experience and timetable and all those things to try and coordinate. And I really appreciate just the depth of the organizing of all of that, right? Like, I don't think that any of us could realize just how involved that is. I am curious, and I think it's a good point to be made about the safety of the volunteers at that moment in time. What are the sort of the things that you need to just be really cautious of helping to support a woman with her move?
So all of our move coordinators, the people who plan the move, and our lead movers, who are kind of the advocate for the client on the day, receive a lot of additional training on both risk assessment, how to be trauma informed while completing the move. So while we're worried about the more obvious safety aspects, we're also worried about the emotional safety of everyone involved. And our risk assessment model isn't just, okay, we've done the intake, we've heard from one person. We want to continually assess the risks. For a lot of our clients who are still perhaps living in the unsafe home, that risk changes every day. So we need to be aware of that risk changing every day. So we work very hard to mitigate any risk for any of our clients and our volunteers by continuously doing that and then being prepared. So we won't go on a move where someone knows an address without security at the very least. Even if they've moved out of town, if they know the address, we're bringing security. If anything is slightly more risky, we're going to involve police. Or if the client just feels safer with police, we're going to involve police. Just from these last 6 years, we've never had any instance of danger on a move because we work so hard to make sure that we're prepared for any situation.
Yeah, wow. So considering all of the planning that has to go into assisting a woman with her move, how quick is the turnaround that you can actually make a move happen? Because I know for many women, it needs to be a very quick thing. It's an immediate, I need to get out, I need my stuff, right? So talk to us about the time frame, like how much time you actually need to be able to do all that planning.
Well, for the majority of the moves and all the folks that we work with regularly, they usually know to give us about a week. But for these, what we call urgent exit or high risk moves, if we have our intake complete, we are lucky enough to have the volunteer base to be able to turn it around within 24 to 48 hours. We can't do same day moves at this point in our lives, in our organization's journey, but we have really been able to close the gap here. And that's because we are partnered with such like dedicated community workers and have such an amazing volunteer base.
Mm-hmm. So I want to talk to you more about those community partners, but I have one more question. So do you ever, would a woman ever come into shelter, but then you would support her with moving her stuff after that fact?
Yes, absolutely. I would say that's actually more common than going straight from the unsafe home to shelter, just because that way it's a more safe time to do that. There's a stable place for the woman or person to be in, and we have a direct contact with their caseworker and everything's nice and clean. That I feel like is almost one of the best parts of our service, is that there is the option to go back now. And it's not just you going back by yourself, which is an incredibly dangerous thing to do. So that's why we're there to come with our little partners in security or police to assist you in that.
Super. So let's talk about the many community partners. So you've talked about police, that you might call on them for support when you're going out to the home, right? And the many volunteers. Who are the community partners that need to help you to be able to do this successfully?
So our community partners we learn so much from the shelter system. We're really existing to try to take some burden off of the staff who work in shelters, victim services, and then our partners who provide for financial help, such as all the storage services who are donating so many units to us that make it possible for us to offer this free to our clients. Vehicle companies that are giving us discounted rentals, because we want to continue to use rentals for confidentiality purposes and insurance purposes, more logistically. And then we also have a couple of companies that are donating boxes and garbage bags. So when we have to help folks pack up their belongings, we have the tools able to do so. So it's a large community coming together for this cause.
Yeah, large community is such great work, Jessica. I have to tell you just how impressed I am and how thankful I am that that support is there for the women. And so I am sure that there is, the shelter movers, to be able to continue this work, has their own needs. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to us about what those needs are?
Absolutely. So for us, the two largest things that we always need are volunteers and financial contributions. In terms of volunteers, we're still a fairly new organization, started in 2016. So any skills that you have, any superpowers you have, we can probably use them in some way. Our volunteer opportunities are vast and varied. If you want that experience of moving, getting a little workout and helping someone, then we're always looking for movers and drivers. We're always looking for people to plan the moves. If you want a more remote experience, but we're also looking for those things that may not be the first things that come to mind. So if you're great at writing, we always need grant writers. If you're great at social media, we always need someone to make up some posts to get some awareness out. So really, if you have a superpower and you care about this cause, reach out to us. And in terms of financial contributions, in order to pay for gas, trucks, some packing materials, it costs about $250 for each one of our moves, which is vastly lower than a person off the street would be able to pay. But it's still a cost that we incur every single day. In Toronto, we do about 35 to 50 moves every single month. So that adds up a lot. The cost is quite heavy on our end, but it's also low enough for folks to really make a difference in someone's life. If you are able to donate $250, you're helping move someone to safety. So it's a really powerful way to think about it.
Yeah. So how do people, let's start off first with folks who may want to volunteer or donate. How do they get in contact with you, and who should they talk to?
Well, you can actually go on our website at sheltermovers.com. That's probably the best way to learn about us more and learn how to volunteer or donate. There's contact forums and all of our information there to get in touch. So that's probably the best option.
And would that be the best option also then for women who are thinking that they could use your services?
Yes, you'll be able to find out how to get a move on the website as well.
Okay. And could it be a woman who isn't necessarily moving into a shelter, but she's moving into a family home or a friend's home or something like that?
Yes, as long as they're connected with some sort of support, because we wouldn't want to work with someone who doesn't have the outside support necessary to really do this in a safe way for yourself. So again, like I said, it can be pretty wide. So if you're connected to any sort of caseworker, you can talk to them to make the referral. That's probably your best bet. You can also call the Assaulted Women's Helpline to get connected with those services.
Do you think that there's any thoughts about even expanding to more cities? And, like if you got a phone call from somebody who lived up north in Muskoka, who said, you know what, I'd like to start a chapter or this here, right? Can they reach out to Shelter Movers to talk more about what that could look like and how to get that started?
Yes, absolutely. We recognize that right now we're really based in big urban centers across the country, and there's a large need in more remote and rural areas. So if you are interested in getting more information about how to start a chapter, again, go to sheltermovers.com and you'll be able to be in touch with someone. That being said, we already have plans to launch in 4 more cities over the next 4 years, I believe, largely across the prairies. So we'll soon be fully connected in the provinces at least, and hopefully in more remote areas up north as well.
That is absolutely amazing. And Jessica, again, I want to, on behalf of our shelter and the women we support, I just want to thank you so much for this service. It is invaluable and one less thing that women need to worry about, right? So thank you so much. And thank you to our community for joining us for this discussion today. We really hope that this has been insightful. Please check out Shelter Movers' website. And if you can help them out in the great work that they're doing, we really encourage that. Just know that when you help Shelter Movers, you are helping the women that we support in our shelter, in our community. So thanks everyone for joining us. Take care, and we'll see you again here next time. Bye-bye.